I shouldn't have followed the coordinates. That was the first rule, but I did it anyway. Now, she's standing right in front of me, behind an abandoned gas station off a Texas highway, a place where nobody ever comes. Her car's still running. The door is open, but she isn't there. No, that's not quite right. She is here. She's standing right in front of me. Everything from the neck up is cleanly gone, with just her spring brake bag lying on the ground. Yet she's standing, like she's trying to tell me something. In my hand, a radio crackles. Her voice comes through it. "Thank you for finding me, but you should have gone back." She reaches out her hand. Red liquid drips from her fingertips. That day, I broke all the rules. My name's Danny. I work at the campus radio station, tucked inside the old media building at Westbrook College. It's not a fancy place, just a couple of small studios, some outdated equipment, and a break room with a microwave that smells like burnt popcorn no matter how many times you clean it. But it's home, in a way. I graduated from here a few years back. I always figured I'd move on to something bigger, maybe a job in commercial radio or even TV production. But I guess I got attached. Westbrook has this way of pulling you back in. Or maybe I never really wanted to leave in the first place. My job is simple. I'm one of the tech guys. I help set up mics and cameras for the broadcasting students, keep the soundboard running, and make sure nothing catches fire. That's about it. I can kick my feet up in the middle of the day and read a book, grab coffee with a coworker, and even leave early if there's nothing going on. Doesn't pay much, but it's enough. My rent's covered, I've got an emergency fund, and I throw a little into my retirement account every month. I don't need much. On weekends, I go hiking with my buddies. In the evenings, I play video games or watch old horror movies. It's a good life. A quiet life. The station itself isn't much to look at. It's in the basement level of the media building, down a hallway that always smells a little like damp carpet. There are 2 recording booths, a control room, and a storage closet full of cables and ancient equipment nobody uses anymore. Lately, something's changed. A new show slot has opened up, a frequency we didn't have before. That doesn't usually happen. The schedule has been the same for years, every slot filled, every hour accounted for. But then, one day, a gap appeared, a new frequency like it had always been there. The higher-ups didn't ask questions. They just decided to fill it. And to keep the schedule running smoothly, they had to bring in extra help. That's where you come in. Welcome to your first night on the job. I have a few rules for you to follow. The new slot runs from 3:13 a.m. to 4:02 a.m. That's right, just for those minutes. It's weird. Most radio slots are neat, clean blocks, 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. But this one is exactly 49 minutes long. Not an hour. Not half an hour. 49. Nobody really questioned it. The station managers figured it was a good idea. A way to bring in more listeners, maybe. Westbrook has a lot of night workers, nurses, security guards, call center employees, students with late-night study sessions. They need something to listen to, too. The station's always looking for ways to reach more people. The way they saw it, it was a perfect fit. A late-night slot for the late-night crowd. But things have been strange since it started. The last guy quit. He didn't give a reason. Not really. Just came in one morning, dropped his keycard on my desk, and left. No 2 weeks' notice. No explanation. When I asked him what happened, He just shook his head and told me to find someone else. But he'd been acting weird before that. Always showed up on time, but he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Sometimes there were red handprints on his arms or smudged onto his shirt, like red paint. I asked him about it once. He just stared at me for a second, then rolled his sleeve down and changed the subject. Then you applied for the position when he left. I don't want to get ahead of myself and scare you off on your first night. Maybe the last guy just couldn't handle the hours. Not everyone is built for overnight work, after all. But just in case, I have a list of rules for you to follow. So you better grab a coffee and listen. Rule number 1. Don't follow the coordinates. It's normal for radio stations to get calls. That's part of the job. People like to interact. They request songs, ask for shoutouts, or just call in because they're bored during a night shift. It breaks up the routine, keeps things feeling a little more alive. You'll have a script. It's taped to the desk. Simple stuff. Introductions, station identification, filler banter for when things get too quiet. Nothing complicated. You take the calls, read off whatever the station managers want you to read. Keep things running smoothly. But sometimes, a particular call comes in. It's not on the request line. It's not from a regular listener. It's an old man. He reads off a set of random numbers that don't make sense to anybody listening. 41.49 degrees, 81.69. Then he hangs up. The numbers change every time. No one has ever gotten the same set twice. At first, the DJs treated it like a prank. They'd laugh it off, maybe make a joke about winning the lottery or guessing someone's birthday. They'd drop the call and move on with the show. No big deal. But the calls didn't stop. It took me a few weeks to notice the pattern. Every night, like clockwork, they came in. The same voice. The same slow delivery. A new set of numbers each time. The managers tried blocking the number, but it didn't matter. The calls always got through. I got curious and started digging. At first, I just wanted to see if there was a pattern. Maybe the numbers repeated. Maybe it was some elaborate prank by a bored student with too much time on their hands. So I started writing them down. 42.36 minus 71.0, 534.05 minus 118.2. Every time the call came in, I'd jot the numbers down in a notebook I kept under the desk. At first, it felt pointless. Just a habit. Something to do to make the weirdness seem a little less weird. The managers told me to ignore the calls. Just drop them, they said. It's nothing, but it didn't feel like nothing. After a while, I had pages of numbers. Pages of something I didn't understand. They never repeated. Not once. Then I started plugging them into the internet. At first, I thought they'd lead to nothing. Just a bunch of random digits with no real meaning. Maybe an old landline number, an IP address, some hidden website filled with cryptic nonsense. Something explainable, something normal. But they weren't. They were coordinates. Longitude and latitude. I remember the first time I realized it. I typed one of the sets into Google Maps, half expecting an error message or some irrelevant location in the middle of the ocean. But it wasn't. It was a street corner in Boston. I didn't think much of it. Then I tried another. A forest clearing in Tennessee. Then another. A bridge in London. I kept going. Clicking. Searching. Each one led somewhere specific. A real place. And then I started seeing the news articles. Each coordinate lined up with a missing person's case. different time periods, different parts of the world, some from decades ago, some recent, some well-known, others just a footnote in old police reports, but all unsolved. All people who had vanished without a trace. I thought it had to be a coincidence. It had to be. But the more I looked, the worse it got. A set of numbers from last week pointed to a rest stop off a highway in Nevada. A woman disappeared there 3 months ago. Another led to an abandoned gas station in Portland where a man was last seen in 1987. Another to a beach in Florida. A kid gone missing in 2004. Dozens of them. Maybe more. That's when I found the latest set of coordinates. At first, it didn't seem any different from the others. Just another string of numbers, another pin on the map. But when I looked it up, there was nothing. No news articles. No old reports. No case files buried in the back of some archive. Just a location. It led to an abandoned gas station off a Texas highway, a few miles from here. That was the first time I hesitated. Every other coordinate had a story behind it. A name, a face, a brief summary of someone who had disappeared. This one had nothing, just a spot on the map. But by now, I understood the pattern. I knew what it meant. Someone had gone missing there. They just hadn't been reported yet. I told myself to forget about it. Then, the next night, the station ran a national missing persons report. We aired those sometimes, part of an effort to spread awareness, keep the public informed. The anchors read off the details like they always did. Name, description, last known location. She was a college student, driving through Texas on her way to meet friends in the next city over for spring break. She stopped at a local diner named Jerry's, then got back on the road. That was the last time anyone saw her. She never made it to her destination. Her last known location? The coordinates I had plugged in the night before. I stared at the screen, barely listening as they moved on to the next story. My mind was stuck on the numbers, on the voice reading them out over the phone. The slow, deliberate way he spoke. He had given me her last known location before the news even broke, before the police had even made it public. That was the night I stopped looking. I closed the notebook, put it in the back of my desk drawer, told myself I was done. But last week, I took out the notebook again. I checked the latest coordinates, and I drove out there. Rule number 2. Ignore the dead DJ in the back room. More than a decade ago, the station had one of the best DJs we'd ever seen. A guy with real talent. People loved him. His voice was smooth, his timing was perfect, and he had this way of making every listener feel like they were in on the joke. It didn't matter if he was talking about the weather, an upcoming concert, or some dumb story from his morning commute. He made it sound interesting. He had that rare gift, the kind you can't teach. Some people just know how to talk, how to hold a room, even when that room is made up of people scattered across 100 radios and car speakers. His slot was the most popular at the time. Every night, he'd take calls, crack jokes, play music that fit the mood just right. Callers felt like they were talking to an old friend, and in a way, they were. He had that effect on people, but it didn't last. He had a heart condition, nothing too serious, or at least that's what he thought. The doctors weren't sure what caused it, just that something wasn't right. His blood pressure was off, his heart rhythm was irregular. He went on medication, kept an eye on his health, but he didn't slow down. Then, one night, it happened. He was on air, right in the middle of the sentence. One moment, he was laughing at something a caller said. The next, he stopped, just went silent. The co-host covered for him, smoothed it over so well that most listeners didn't even notice anything was wrong. They got him to the hospital, but he didn't make it. The station lost one of its best that night. Thing is, he never left. The back rooms are where we keep all the old equipment and props. It's a mess back there. Rows of metal shelves stacked with cardboard boxes full of forgotten things. Costumes that smell like mothballs. Cameras past their prime. Stage lights missing bulbs. Tangled piles of wires that connect to who knows what. It's a graveyard for things the station doesn't use anymore but refuses to throw away. It's also where the dead DJ hangs out. Now, before you get any ideas, he doesn't look dead. He's not some zombified corpse, not a rotting thing crawling out of the walls. If you saw him, you'd think he was just another guy working late. Except he's not. You'll know it's him by the red jacket. That's the one thing that never changes. No matter when or where you see him, he's always wearing that same red jacket, the one he wore the night he died. He doesn't do much. Just walks around like he's inspecting the place, looking at cameras, facing corners like he's thinking about something. He never speaks. If you see him, ignore him. Act like he's not there if you can. But sometimes, on rare occasions, he'll try to talk to you. If that happens, make up an excuse. Say you need to get back to work. Keep it short. Maybe give him a quick hello. Then take what you need and leave. My first night at the station, I didn't know about the DJ in the red jacket. I was still a student back then, going through college, just another kid trying to get experience in broadcasting. I had volunteered to help set up for next week's set and was told to check the back rooms for props. That's where I met him. He was standing near a shelf, flipping through an old record sleeve like he was considering playing it. I thought he was just another staff member, maybe an alumnus coming back to help out. He looked normal, solid, real. We talked for a while, 5 minutes, maybe more. He had this easy way of speaking, like someone who had spent years behind a microphone. We talked about music, old records, the way vinyl had a warmth to it that digital sound would never match. He asked what I liked to listen to, and I told him I was into classic rock. He laughed, said that was a good choice. We finished talking, and I didn't think anything of it. Then my friend called for me from the hall. I glanced away for just a second, told him I'd be right back. When I turned around, he was gone. I still remember that conversation like it happened yesterday. Every word of it. The way he nodded when I talked. The way he held that record in his hands. I didn't know I had been speaking to a dead man until later. Now, when I see him, I wave. I give him a nod if he's facing me, but I don't stop for conversation. He's not violent. Never has been. But it's best not to take any chances. My dad once told me that the dead like to linger when they have unfinished business. They cling to the places that mattered most to them, roaming around, searching for answers to questions they never got to ask. Some pass on their own, others need help, and some just stay, stuck between here and whatever comes next. The station managers tried to deal with him once. He popped up one night and scared the hell out of the owner's girlfriend. They hired a guy named Sam Carver. Not a priest. Not the kind of person you'd expect to perform an exorcism. Just an old man who looked like Clint Eastwood and carried himself like he'd seen too much in his lifetime. He walked into the back rooms, stood there for a long time, and just started talking. Not chanting, not praying, just talking. like he was catching up with an old neighbor. He stayed for about an hour. When he came back out, he shrugged and told us, "Some souls aren't ready." Then he left. Didn't even charge a fee. After that, the ghost became quieter. We saw him less and less. Maybe he's finally starting to move on. Maybe not. Either way, if you ever run into him, just leave him be. Let him have his peace. Some people don't know they're dead. Last week, I had a second conversation with him. I shouldn't have. I know. But he looked different. The collar of his red jacket was torn, and blood was seeping from it. When he spoke, it was with a raspy, hoarse voice. "Those calls," he said, "they don't understand. They shouldn't take them." I was about to ask him more when suddenly, black liquid started pouring from his pocket. He reached out toward me. I stepped back in alarm. He was holding something in his hand. It looked like a small, ancient cassette tape. It was covered in black liquid, dripping between his fingers. "Play this," he choked out. "Play it." I tried to take the tape from his hand, but it was slippery, almost unmanageable. The moment I lifted the tape, he vanished, just disappeared. All that remained in my hand was the black-stained tape. That night, I thought about playing this tape instead of the midnight track, but I came to my senses. Rules exist for a reason, especially rule number 3. Always take the dead calls. Part of being a good DJ is knowing how to take calls and keep them going. We've already covered that. Some DJs are great at it. Natural entertainers who can turn even the most awkward caller into good radio, like the great Art Bell. Some are mediocre, stumbling through conversations, letting dead air stretch too long. If you're worried about fumbling, don't be. There's a script taped to the desk. Just follow it. I recommend drinking a Red Bull before your slot. You don't want to fall asleep on the mic. But there's something strange you should know about the calls you get. Something besides the numbers. The station calls them dead calls, and you must always pick them up. It started years ago, back when the station first experimented with horror programming. It was supposed to be a one-time Halloween special. The idea was simple. Listeners would call in and share their scariest stories live on air. Ghost encounters, strange happenings, urban legends, anything eerie was fair game. It was a hit. People loved it. Callers flooded the lines, eager to share ghost stories, urban legends, strange experiences they swore were real. Listeners couldn't get enough. The response was so strong that the station decided to expand it beyond Halloween. Soon enough, we were running horror story segments throughout the year. Westbrook just loves a good scare. We built a reputation on it. The station became known for its horror slots. People tuned in expecting something eerie, something unsettling. It made good money. The managers leaned into it hard. Then, the dead calls started happening. They started off small. Calls that appeared with no number on the station's dial. Just blank. No caller ID. No area code. Nothing. Just an incoming call from nowhere. At first, we thought it was a technical issue. A bad line. Maybe someone calling from a busted phone that couldn't display numbers properly. It happens sometimes. You pick up. There's a little interference. And then the voice comes through. Except these calls weren't normal. The DJ would answer like usual. Ask who was calling, try to get a name. And then, nothing. 5 seconds of pure silence. Usually, callers are excited to be on the radio. They talk too loudly into the phone, their voices jumping with energy, eager to tell their stories. Some of them ramble. Some of them laughed too much. That's just how it is when people know they have an audience listening. But these calls were different. No excitement. No stammering or nervous laughter. Just silence, like a bad connection. Like the person on the other end wasn't sure they were really being heard. Then, finally, they'd start speaking. It was never the same person twice. The names, the voices, they were always different. But the pattern was the same. They were people the town had lost. They talked about how they died, where it happened. Sometimes, if it had been murder, they even named the person who did it. Other times, it wasn't gruesome at all. Just a quiet story about getting lost in the woods and never coming back. About missing their family. About how much they wished they could see them one last time. They never stayed on the line for long. 55 seconds. Always the same. Then they'd hang up, and we'd never hear from them again. At first, the town thought it was a cruel prank. We got angry calls from people asking why someone would pretend to be their missing spouse, their dead daughter, their brother who had drowned in the lake years ago. We tried tracing the calls, but there was nothing to trace. No number. No signal origin. Just silence on the logs where a call should have been. Still, the horror segments continued, and so did the dead calls. The most shocking dead call was about a missing persons case from years ago. The girl on the line said her name was Tracy. She told us she had gone missing on July 12th. I remembered that case. Everybody did. Back when I was in college, Tracy's face was everywhere. Milk cartons, store posters, news broadcasts. Her name was burned into the country's consciousness. She had been just a kid when she disappeared, barely 16. One day, she was walking home from a friend's house. The next, she was gone. The whole country was looking for her. For months, her case dominated national news. Every new lead, every witness statement, every tip from some stranger claiming they saw a girl who might be Tracy. It was all covered, speculated on, dissected. People searched the forests, drained rivers, checked basements and abandoned buildings, but nothing ever came of it. Soon enough, the media moved on. That's just how life goes. The world doesn't stop turning just because you do. People get tired of hearing about the same tragedy, the same unanswered questions. Tracy's story faded like all the others before her, until the night of her dead call. It was a normal Friday night. The horror segment was winding down. Only a few minutes left before the DJ was set to close out the show. Then the call came through. No number. Just blank. The DJ expected another scary story, maybe a local legend or some made-up ghost tale. But then a woman's voice came through. She described herself, her hair, her height, the last outfit she had been wearing the day she vanished. Details that matched the posters from years ago. And then, most importantly, she described who killed her. It was Jacob Williamson, she said. 5'10", brown hair, green eyes. That was the night the station became part of a police investigation. Everything changed after that call. The recording was pulled and analyzed. The police listened to it over and over, dissecting every word, every breath. The details she gave were too specific, too accurate to be anything but the truth. She went on to give even more details, and it led straight to a man the police had suspected for years but could never pin anything on. They arrested him the next morning. Tracy's killer is in prison to this day. I don't know the full details. The police don't exactly hand out case files to random radio techs. All I know is that without that call, without Tracy speaking from wherever she was, he would still be out there. So you take the dead calls. No matter how weird they get, no matter how much they unsettle you, you never ignore them. You never know who's on the other end. And if they've spent their last words reaching out to us, you better listen. Rule number 4. Always play the midnight track before you leave. People call it the midnight track, even when it's played at different times of the day. The name just stuck. Maybe because it feels like something that belongs to the late hours, something meant for empty streets and quiet rooms. It's an old track. Nobody really knows where it came from. It's just always been part of the station. No artist credited, no official recording, just a simple piece of music stored on an unlabeled vinyl tucked away in the archives. It sounds like gospel, but not quite. It's soothing, if you're into that sort of thing, but I've always found it cleansing. That's a weird way to put it, I know, but it's the only way I can describe it. The track doesn't just sound peaceful, it feels peaceful. Like something heavy lifts off your shoulders while it plays, like the air settles in a way you didn't realize was off before. Maybe that's why the station has always used it to close out a shift. The rule is simple. Load it up beforehand, make sure it's ready, and play it at the end of your slot. The shift isn't done until the midnight record is played, and you're not allowed to leave until the final note. I guess you're wondering why the midnight track exists, why it matters, why you're not allowed to leave until the final note plays. I'll tell you. There's a story that floats around the station about where the midnight record came from. It's not in any official records. You won't find it in old documents or station logs. But if you stick around long enough, you'll hear someone mention it. The story goes like this. Years ago, long before Westbrook College bought the lot and built a campus on it, the station was run by a group of religious hippies, not the strict, fire and brimstone type. These were the peace sign, four-leaf clover, barefoot in the grass kind of believers. They were happy people, or at least they seemed that way. They wore colorful t-shirts, grew their hair out, and preached love and kindness. They started the station as a way to spread their version of the gospel. It wasn't just sermons. They played music, shared uplifting messages, gave advice to anyone who called in. The kind of things meant to make people feel safe, comforted. They wanted to build a community, one that stretched beyond their little patch of land. Some of them even moved onto the property. They built a small farm behind the station, just enough to sustain themselves. A vegetable patch, a few goats, a handful of tiny cabins where they lived. They didn't rely on anyone else. They made their own food, generated their own power. They even built their own cell tower. They wanted their message to reach farther, beyond the town, beyond the state. And for a while, everything was fine. But then something bad happened. They tried to reach out to something that wasn't human. Some say they were trying to talk to God himself, that they wanted something bigger, something beyond the songs and sermons. They wanted proof, a sign, a voice answering back. Whoever answered their call was not God. No one knows exactly what happened. The details are vague, twisted by time and retellings. But the story goes that after they built their tower, after they pushed their broadcast further and further into the unknown, something pushed back. The first year I worked here, when I was trusted to finish a shift alone, there was a sound between when one cycle ended and the next began. It sounded like a small laugh, low and almost sarcastic. I thought it was just someone hanging around late, but when I went to check, there was no one. Just empty halls and the faint red glow of the blinking on-air sign. I was supposed to play the midnight track. It was the first time I was told to prepare the tape. It looked strange, almost moldy. Before playing it, I thought I was being smart. I tried to clean it, wiped it with liquid cleaner. When I played it, instead of the usual peaceful sounds, it was a distorted explosion of static. That night, I dreamed. One by one, they fell from the tower, burning, drowning. I watched them suffer. I woke up in a cold sweat. And the next week, the tower in the south wing collapsed. A campus construction worker fell from its top during his lunch break. The investigation said he'd been drinking the night before, but all of us knew better, because he was the one scheduled to play the track on the late-night broadcast of my shift. And from that first group, one by one, the people who ran the station started dying. It was never quick, never peaceful. A man fell from the top of the cell tower, his body found crumpled at the base like he had been shoved. Another got locked inside his cabin when it went up in flames. No one heard him scream. By the time they broke the door down, there was nothing left to save. There were others. More deaths. More strange accidents. A woman who walked into the woods one night and never came back. A man who drowned in the shallow pond behind the farm, even though he had been a strong swimmer. One by one, they disappeared until there was no one left to run the station. Eventually, the land was sold. The buildings were torn down, the farm wiped away. Westbrook College bought the lot, refurbished the radio station, and turned it into what it is today. But the past didn't just vanish. The first people who walked through those doors found things left behind. Old albums filled with photos. Some of them were normal, pictures of smiling faces, people laughing, hugging, singing together in front of a microphone. But as they flipped through the pages, the photos changed. There were pictures of how those hippies died, but always out of frame. A broken arm here, a leg there, then blood seeping into the carpet. Finally, a picture of a goat staring right into the camera, its red eyes looking straight at you. At least, that's what the alumni say. But the strangest thing wasn't the photos. It was the set of rules left on the table, taped onto it in plain view, as if someone had been desperate to make sure they were followed. The most important rule was circled in red ink. Always play the midnight record. Somebody had left a note alongside the rules. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, but the words were clear. It warned that bad things happen when the midnight record isn't played, that whatever's out there has its eyes on the station, and that the song is the only thing keeping it at bay. At the bottom, one sentence was underlined twice. Play it and pray. Those are all of the rules you need to know. I've worked here for a long time. I graduated here on a Friday and started work on Monday morning. Same station, same halls, same late nights spent in the glow of the control board. The callers come and go, voices drifting through the speakers, stories shared and forgotten, but the station stays the same. And you've been listening this whole time. Looks like your shift is about to start. Before you settle in, remember the rules. They're simple, but they matter. Don't follow the coordinates. The voice on the line will give you numbers, slow and steady, like they mean something. And they do. But you don't want to know where they lead. You don't want to be the one to find out. Some things are better left undiscovered. Ignore the dead DJ in the back room. He doesn't speak much, but when he does, don't linger. Be polite. Be quick. He was one of the best we ever had, and maybe that's why he's still here. Maybe he just doesn't know how to leave. Take the dead calls, no matter how strange. No matter how impossible, you answer. You listen. 55 seconds. That's all they get. Some of them just want to talk. Some of them are trying to be found. Some of them are looking for justice. The least you can do is listen. And always, always play the midnight track. It's not just tradition. It's not just a closing song. It's what keeps the station standing. What keeps something else from stepping through. Play it and pray. Most people tune in for the music. They never notice the silence between the songs. They never wonder what might be listening back. That's good. That's safe. But now you know better. Go on. Cue up the next set. The switchboard's lighting up, and your first call is waiting. And hey, if you ever hear a voice you shouldn't, if something on the line doesn't feel quite right, just keep talking. Welcome to Westbrook College Radio. See you after your shift. If you make it back,